suicide is a private hell. But when the victim is a prince, it becomes a global inquest into a soul. Tonight, that inquest has reached its devastating, unambiguous verdict. Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, is dead by his own hand. His body was recovered at the base of the cliffs near his private refuge in New Zealand. He left no public note. He made no final call, but he left a map. A map made of paper and poison, written in a hand he once loved more than his own heritage. A 23-page letter, discovered in a locked compartment of his writing desk, addressed to no one, or perhaps to everyone. It is not a farewell. It is a forensic autopsy of a love story, conducted with the chilling clarity of a man who has just read his own obituary written before he ever lived. The author of the letter is Meghan Markle, and its contents prove, in her own elegant, ruthless prose, that from the very first meeting, she never loved him. She was auditioning a role, and he was the perfect princely prop. The fairy tale didn't just end. It is now revealed to have never existed. The letter is not a recent document. It is dated June 2016, mere 4 months after their fabled first blind date. It was written by Meghan to her then business manager and closest confidant, Jessie Mulroney. It was meant to be a strategic assessment, a cold-eyed evaluation of the opportunity Prince Harry represented. It was never meant for his eyes. How it came to be in his possession locked away for years is a mystery. But its authenticity has been confirmed by 3 independent forensic document examiners. The language is not that of a smitten woman. It is the language of a CEO evaluating a merger. On page 4, she writes, "Asset H is ideal. The trauma is deep. The resentment towards the institution is profoundly malleable. His need for a savior narrative is our most powerful lever. He doesn't just want a wife. He wants a cause. I can be that cause. The optics are perfect, biracial, American, self-made versus the ancient, pale, oppressive monarchy. The global media will write the story for us. We just have to hit the marks." On page 7, she analyzes his utility. His military background provides the authenticity armor. His charity work gives us the compassion platform. His broken family dynamic is the engine for a narrative of escape and rebirth. Crucially, his standing within the firm is low enough that our exit will be a shock, but not a catastrophic blow to the monarchy's function, minimizing the likelihood of an overwhelming counter-narrative. He is, in essence, the perfectly calibrated vehicle for the disruption we seek. The most devastating passage is on page 12, where she discusses the concept of love itself. "Jessie, you ask about affection. Of course, there is a performative intimacy required. He is attractive, he is kind in his way. But the love the public will see must be a political and strategic alliance wrapped in the language of destiny. My affection is for the potential, for the platform, for the seismic change we can effect. Personal, romantic love is a fragile, inefficient fuel for a project of this scale. Our fuel will be shared grievance and world-changing ambition. That is a stronger bond than love. It is a partnership with a purpose." For Harry, reading these words likely discovered only recently, perhaps during a search for old documents or in a betrayed moment of suspicion, would have been a psychological execution. Every tender memory, every whispered "I love you" in the dark, every moment he defied his family and the world for her, was retroactively transformed into a rehearsed scene. He wasn't a man fighting for his love, he was Asset H, a tool of seismic change. His deepest wounds were not empathized with, they were malleable levers. His love was not returned. It was performative intimacy. The letter doesn't just reveal a lack of love, it reveals a fundamental, grotesque misunderstanding of their entire relationship. He was living a love story. She was managing a multinational rebrand. The man who gave up a kingdom for what he believed was a truer world with his soulmate discovered too late. That he was the primary investor and star actor in a production whose director never believed in the plot. Prince Harry did not kill himself over a failed marriage. He killed himself over the annihilation of his reality. The secret letter was the proof that the 7 years since he met Meghan Markle, the most defining, public, and passionately defended years of his life, were a beautiful, devastating fiction. And he had sacrificed everything, including himself, to play his part in it. The suicide of a prince is a national tragedy. The reason revealed is a collective heartbreak. The world is not just mourning Harry, it is mourning the death of the story he made them believe in. The fairy tale for the modern age is now a cautionary tale of emotional fraud. The public's grief has curdled into a directed, white-hot fury at Meghan Markle. She is not a widow in the public eye. She is the architect of a ruin. Inside the royal family, grief is secondary to a scorching, unified wrath. King Charles has reportedly barred Meghan from the funeral and any memorial. Prince William's grief is described as volcanic, a silent, shaking rage that he is channeling into a single, relentless demand, a full, criminal investigation. He wants Meghan charged with intentional infliction of emotional distress and fraudulent misrepresentation under British law, arguing her deliberate deception led directly to his brother's death. The palace lawyers are exploring if the letter constitutes psychological manslaughter. The funeral arrangements are a minefield. Harry will be buried in a private, unmarked plot within the Windsor grounds, not in the royal vault. The service will be familially closed to the world. There will be no eulogy, no procession. The monarchy is burying the scandal with the prince, opting for a silence so deep it hopes to drown out the echoing words of the letter. But the central, haunting question now driving investigations on both sides of the Atlantic is, how did Harry find the letter? The Mulroney letter was written to Jessica Mulroney. It should have been in her possession, destroyed, or in a vault. The theory emerging is a perfect storm of betrayal and technology. 6 weeks ago, Jessica Mulroney's home in Toronto was burglarized. The police report listed stolen jewelry and electronics. But sources now suggest it was a targeted hack, a sophisticated cyber intrusion that accessed her private cloud storage, specifically searching for documents dated 2015-2017. The hacker, according to digital forensics, was a ghost client of a notorious private intelligence firm based in Tel Aviv. This firm's client list reportedly includes several high-ranking, disgruntled British aristocrats and media barons with a virulent hatred for Meghan. The intelligence firm's mission was to find existential leverage against Meghan. They found the Mulroney letter, but they didn't release it to the press. In a move of calculated psychological cruelty, they anonymously sent it to one person, Prince Harry. An encrypted data packet arrived on a burner device delivered to his New Zealand residence. The cover note simply read, "The original script. You were never supposed to read it." Harry received it. He authenticated it, likely through a trusted former aide who recognized Mulroney's stationery and signature. And then he was alone with the truth. For 17 days, he carried the knowledge, a terminal diagnosis for his own life. He made no calls, he wrote no reply. He simply let the poison of the words complete their work. For Meghan, this chain of events is a second, more public execution. She is now besieged in her Montecito compound. The FBI has placed her under protective surveillance not for her safety, but because she is a person of interest in an international harassment and potential incitement case. Her legal team is arguing she is a victim of theft and malicious psychological torture. But in the court of public opinion, she is guilty. The letter's words are her own. They require no interpretation. Her relationship with Jessica Mulroney is obliterated. Mulroney has released a statement calling the letter a private, strategic brainstorming document never meant to reflect deep feelings, grossly taken out of context. It is a weak defense. The context is Harry's suicide. The deep feelings are proven absent by her own pen. And for Harry's children, Archie and Lilibet, their world has been atomized. They have lost their father to suicide. They are now wards of a California court with Meghan's parental fitness under emergency review. The king has filed for immediate emergency custody from across the ocean, citing the toxic and proven fraudulent environment created by their mother. The children are not just grieving. They are the final prize in a war over their father's corpse. A war started by a letter that proved their parents' love was a business plan. The secret letter proved Meghan never loved him, but its discovery and delivery were a targeted assassination of his spirit. Prince Harry didn't just take his own life. He was driven to the cliff's edge by a chain of malice that began with his wife's cold calculation and ended with an enemy's cruel decision to show him the blueprint of his own despair. His suicide is the finale, but the act was committed weeks earlier in an email with attached PDFs that contained the death of his world. In the aftermath of a suicide, there are no winners, only survivors and the ruins they inhabit. The funeral was a silent, grim affair. Harry was buried as he lived his last days, alone. William, Charles, and a handful of loyal friends stood in the rain. Meghan was not there. No one spoke. The earth accepted a prince who died from a truth he could not survive. The legal battles ended not with verdicts, but with exhausted, sealed settlements. Meghan was not criminally charged. The letter, while morally devastating, was not a direct legal incitement. The custody war for Archie and Lilibet concluded with a brutal compromise. The children were made wards of the California State Court. They live in a neutral, therapeutic residence supervised by court-appointed guardians. Meghan has supervised visitation 4 hours a week in a sterile family center. The king's petition was denied, but his objective was met. The children were removed from her orbit. They are safe, anonymous, and severed from the legacy of both their mother's calculation and their father's tragedy. Meghan Markle exists now in a purgatory of her own making. The Mulroney letter is etched into her public identity forever. She is the woman who didn't love the prince. Any career, any voice, any platform is impossible. She lives off the remaining Sussex wealth in a secluded property, socially and culturally obliterated. The ultimate performative activist is now unable to perform, her most damning review written in her own hand. Years before the show even opened, the royal family has sealed the wound with ceremonial silence. Harry's name is rarely spoken. His room at Windsor remains as he left it. The institution has learned a terrible lesson, that the most dangerous threats are not to the body of the monarch, but to the heart of the story that sustains it. The monarchy endures, but it is a colder, more guarded institution, forever wary of the personal. Forever aware that love can be a weapon and a prince can be its most tragic casualty, the secret letter now resides in a high-security archive alongside other royal secrets. It is a historical curiosity, a piece of evidence in the death of a fairy tale. For biographers, it is the key to everything. For the public, it is the reason a prince is dead. Prince Harry committed suicide after learning a secret truth. But the greater truth is this: we all live by the stories we tell ourselves. His story was one of rebellious, redemptive love. When he discovered it was a strategic brief, the narrative of his life collapsed, and with it, his will to live. He did not die because Meghan didn't love him. He died because he could no longer love the man he had become in service to that lie. The cliff in New Zealand didn't kill him. The 23 pages of elegant, heartless prose did, and all that remains is the wind, the waves, and the unbearable weight of a love that was never there.